pictures of Jeannie did. I'm sorry. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'll try and move through this pretty quickly for you. But I'm here tonight with Glenn Glass, who's an engineering manager with BNSF-RR. My name is Matt Wells. I'm an attorney, and I work with BNSF on environmental and real property issues. So we're here tonight to talk to the city about BNSF's need to try and work with the city to acquire a small piece of right-of-way that the city has that's within the footprint of the county line levee setback project. And we're here because the county came to BNSF and said, we want to build this project, and BNSF looked at the project to try and figure out, well, what does that mean for the railroad and the railroad's properties, and BNSF very much supports the project, and in order to complete that, we need to acquire this piece of property. So when Jeannie said that the county had completed its property acquisition, that's true for all the properties that the county is acquiring, but there is one last piece of property that's needed for the county line levee setback project, and that's the city Pacific right-of-way that we're here to talk to you about tonight. First slide, please, Chris. So, as Jeannie said, BNSF has been involved in the county line setback project since about 2013, when the county approached BNSF and said, hey, we want to set back the levee and we want to tie into your railroad embankment. So that got BNSF's attention, and we've been having a pretty good discussion ever since about how to make that happen. Jeannie mentioned the natural resource damages settlement and how the natural resource damages parties are contributing money to help pay for the county line levee setback project. BNSF is one of those 60 parties, and for those of you who don't do environmental law every day like I do, it relates to the Superfund site in Tacoma, which was cleaned up in 2003. And there's another part of the Superfund law which says that after you clean up a Superfund site, you need to make the public whole for the injury to the natural resources that happened during the time of pollution. And so with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the tribes, the state, other federal entities, the county line levee setback project was identified as being a really good habitat restoration project and providing the kind of restoration that would make up for the injuries in Tacoma's Commencement Bay. So BNSF has multiple interests in this project. One, because its railroad embankment is physically going to be tied into, and two, because it's part of the natural resource damages settlement in Tacoma. So again, why we're here is to try and support the county's project, and BNSF needs to make sure when it's doing that, that it's done in a way that's consistent with the company's long-term interests and operation of its main line, which runs right next to the project. The two issues that need to occur in order to facilitate the county building the project is, one, BNSF acquiring this piece of City Pacific right-of-way, and secondly, as Jeannie mentioned, placing some fill along the current embankment to protect that embankment and to create a haul road for the county before the county builds its project. Next slide, please. And just to orient you, the railroad runs along A Street. I'm sure you all know that. I'm sure you're familiar with that. It runs to the west of A Street there. And the new levee setback is the sort of orange line that runs along the bottom part of the project. And that's a new levee. It's not currently there, and it's going to physically key into the railroad embankment. The old levee is the yellow line up at the top of the project. It also currently keys into the railroad embankment, but the county is going to be resurfacing it. They're going to be bringing the level of that up to prevent overtopping and to prevent uncontrolled floodwaters coming in to the north end of the project there instead of coming in more slowly from the south. So I just wanted to orient you to the two tie-ins that we're going to be talking about. Next slide, please. So south end, brand new, never been there before. North end, resurfacing the old levee. In the short term, what that new levee setback is going to do is it's going to push water up against the railroad embankment that isn't currently there. And that raised a lot of red flags with the railroad when the concept was initially brought to the company, because the company traditionally doesn't allow its embankment to be used as a levee or for levee tie-ins. They're typically not engineered or designed or built to be levees. So when somebody else ties an actual levee into it, there are safety and engineering concerns. So again, those are the kinds of things we've been working through very collaboratively with the county on this project. Next slide, please. So engineering and safety, again, as a result of the levee setback project, there will be flood waters pushed up against the embankment in a way that hasn't happened before. So BNSF needs to make sure that it supports the embankment to keep it safe for continued rail traffic and not undermined by the flood waters. In terms of the long-term development needs, as you may be aware, throughout parts of the alignment, BNSF is working on adding a third main line. In a lot of areas, that's to allow more sounder trains to run, to keep passenger trains moving while freight moves. Because of the structure of the NRD settlement and the fact that the county is going to deed restrict all the lands within the project to make sure that they stay in a natural state in perpetuity and prohibiting all other uses, if BNSF didn't acquire the parts of the property that are going to be within the county line project, it would never be able to put the third main in. So we've worked with the county to acquire a strip of land along the west side of the embankment to protect that future development possibility. So the property acquisition from the county, from a gentleman named Mosby or Mosby Farms, and the city's right-of-way will protect that future possibility and allow the actual physical fill that will protect the embankment. Next slide, please. As Jeannie said, the county and BNSF have been working together very closely on this project. We worked for close to a year on acquiring property from the Gibsons, and by working together, we were able to acquire that voluntarily without going to trial, and that closed in May of this year. We're also engineers are coordinating construction to make sure that one construction project is done before the next one begins and that they physically fit together. And the basic construction sequencing that we're looking at is that BNSF would come in this year, if we can get permits for it, put in the fill along the embankment, and then that fill would serve as a haul road for the county. So the county could then run its trucks up along that fill to get to the north end of the project. Without that fill road, the county would have to build a temporary road across the wetlands to build the project. And then the construction sequencing calls for the county to come in 2016, 2017 and actually build its project. As I mentioned, the other way in which BNSF is supporting the county line project is to allow the county to use the current underpass that comes off of A Street to bring its construction vehicles in to get onto the county line project, and then use the fill as a haul road to move up and down along the embankment. Next slide. There's a whole series of interlocking legal agreements that have got us to this point. And really the bottom line is that from BNSF's perspective, the Natural Resource Damages Consent Decree, which is the legal agreement between the federal trustees, the state trustees, the tribal trustees, and the responsible parties, requires the county line project to be constructed. And if it can't be constructed, then the settlement doesn't work anymore. So all of the responsible parties have then contracted with King County, that's the funding agreement, and the responsible parties pay the money to the county agrees to build the county line project. And then because of the specific issues between BNSF and King County, we have another agreement that's just between King County and BNSF that talks about how we're going to sequence construction, that recognizes the joint acquisition of the Gibson property, and that requires BNSF to give to King County the easements that it needs to tie in to the railroad embankment. And again, the starting point for this is, the railroad initially said, no, we don't do that. We don't allow people to tie their levees into our embankment. So we have come a long way, and we're now at a place where BNSF is saying, great, let's do this. We'll give you, King County, the easements you need to build this project. Next slide, please. So Glenn Gads now is going to talk about the fill plan, and then I'll come back to talk about the property acquisition, which is the one that's where we're going to ask for the opportunity to work with the city.
Once again, thanks, Council, for allowing us to come and present here to you tonight. Embankment fill plan, as Matt mentioned before, is BNSF's current location where our track embankment exists. Does not support any type of a levee situation. The ground, the structure, and everything isn't that way. So once water would back up and come against it, it would start eroding that bank and fill away, and it would just come away, and all of a sudden we have a bunch of track damage and so forth that would occur and would create major problems for us. So as a result of this, going through the process, we have designed a structural fill along this, but we had to bring it out away from the embankment so that we create a new structural fill process, but also at the same time, because of what Matt said earlier, was the fact that we need to protect for the possibility of a third main line in the future, but not at this point. So to do this, we are creating this particular fill that will be at the high water level that will protect both BNSF's track structure, create a roadbed, and also protect any water that comes up against it. That includes various forms of rocking the slopes, riprap, and so forth at various levels. And then as the city builds their the county, builds their portion of the wetlands, that will also help with the water flows and as it comes up against the embankments and so forth. So this is, right now we would be building out 25 to 35 feet from our current toe, which is the bottom part of the slope, out to create this new levee area. On the next slide, up there where you see the yellow, that is where the new enhanced levee will be that the county will be resurfacing and structuring, and then all the green area down below that will be taken away. So now that allows the water to come up. The red, as has been discussed before, is the south end, will all be new. So as you can see, all the lighter green shaded areas what will be coming up against the current BNSF track, which we will be taking care of with this levee embankment. The north end, where the yellow line is, we're at the very end, that's where we're discussing the area of the City of Pacific's property that we need to have in place to make this whole thing work. Next slide. So this is some of the detail. Now we're getting into a lot of the engineering side of the world here, which can get rather technical and so forth, but the pink lines are the current BNSF property that we have. On the bottom of the page is what exists. The pink on the top of the page is what we have acquired through the Gibson and Mosby properties. The red dotted dashed line is where the fill will come out from the current slope, where you have what we call some cut lines and fills to bring up to make sure this whole thing works. Next slide. And this is a cross-section of that area. You can see the dashed line that cuts down. That's the existing ground level. And so then the fills will be coming up against that dashed line on the bottom on a 2-to-1 slope. And then there's a darker dashed line on the left side of the slide or the page, if you're looking at that, that is the height of where the levees will be that the county will be constructing. So we have to match that to be sure that that's all protected, and that is where the high water level will be coming up. So we will be doing that portion of the construction and above that a little ways at this point. And that is all the south end. And that level is at basically 88 foot from sea level sea level, go 88 feet, but that's not the exact how much fill we're putting in is 88 feet. That's not true. That's just the deviation there of what's going on. Then on the next slide is the north tie-in. Same thing is going to occur, showing the cuts. That's where we get up to the bridge, and then that area is where the City of Pacific's property is located, which we need to acquire. Again, next slide shows the tie-in cross-sections, basically the same as I just explained. You can see the current existing ground slope with the dashed line and the amount of fill that we have to have and how we have to come up and tie that in and make sure it's all properly constructed with the structural fill to ensure that none of the embankment erodes away and is affected by the water in the river as it gets into flood levels and so forth. And then the next slide starts back into some of the embankment and the property acquisition areas. If you have any questions for me on that technical side, I can answer them now, or we can wait till the end, whichever you prefer.
Questions from council?
Okay.
Thanks. So again, just like the county had to go through a process of acquiring property in order to be ready to build its project, BNSF has had to do the same thing. And this picture just quickly shows you the acquisitions that have occurred and that we are hoping will occur. The blue are properties that BNSF acquired from King County, which essentially is the Gibson property that the two parties bought together, and then the county separated the parcel and deeded part of it to BNSF. The red is a little narrow strip from Mosby, and that's under contract, hasn't closed yet, but it's under contract. What we're here to talk about today really is the very north part, the little part in green there, which is City of Pacific. So of the entire corridor there from the underpass up to the river, BNSF has completed land acquisitions of everything except the City of Pacific piece on the very north end. Chris, next slide. So this just summarizes Gibson's closed, completed, Mosby's under contract. City of Pacific, it's a 30-foot wide strip of wide right-of-way. It starts, comes across the river, so for our purposes, it comes from the north levee down about 300 feet. And the reason we need it is because both BNSF fill needs to be placed there and because the county levee needs to come on top of it. So it's where the new fill and the county levee come together is within the City of Pacific right-of-way. And again, the reason we are here is we would like to work with the city to go through the acquisition process, which I believe would be through a right-of-way vacation process as provided in the county city's ordinance and in state law. And we've been working with staff, talking with staff, and they suggested that we make this presentation to council tonight and so that we can continue the process of working on vacation. Next slide. And this just zooms in to show you a little bit more closely. The BNSF existing right-of-way is on the right-hand side, runs along A Street. BNSF has acquired the property coming up from the south there. That's what we just acquired from the county. That's parcel 9107. BNSF has historically owned the parcel on the north levee, 0661. So the city of right-of-way there, and with the blue arrow, is surrounded on three sides by existing BNSF ownership, and that's the piece that we really want to talk to you about acquisition on. Next slide. As I said, it's 30 feet wide. It's about 315 feet long. It's currently just wooded, undeveloped, unused. It's adjacent to the main line and embankment. BN owns everything around it except the riverside. There's no existing public access to the property because it's surrounded on all sides by private property, which are not, from which there's no access. And the county parcels that are one step removed, as Jeannie mentioned, are all going to be deed restricted, or as I mentioned, they're going to be deed restricted to require those properties to remain in natural condition forever and preventing any other uses. Because of the limited size, location, and surrounding of that little piece of right-of-way, it's BNSF's opinion that it wouldn't be suitable for. These are a number of purposes that are stated in state law whenever a city is going to vacate a piece of right-of-way that has a shoreline. This is obviously something we would work with the city to evaluate and talk to you about, but in BNSF's opinion, it would not be suitable for any of those things based on size and location. Next slide. BNSF believes there would be some value to the city in vacating the right-of-way, not the least of which is that it's kind of the last piece that's necessary to support the county line project construction. And as Jeannie mentioned, there's substantial benefit to the city in having that county line setback project constructed in terms of flood control benefit. And BNSF would, of course, provide the compensation and pay for all the fees and costs that are required under the city's ordinance and state law. Next slide. So what what we would like is to be able to work with city staff to prepare the proper petition and application materials and to tee up the required evaluations and process for the city to evaluate the petition for vacation of the right-of-way and hopefully to approve it. So that is the presentation that we had for you tonight, and Ms. Glenn would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions from council? Councilor Steiger.
Well, to get layman's terms here.
Sure.
Just exactly where this piece of property is, near as I can try to figure it out, it's south of the bridge on 8th Street.
Correct. Yes.
So
It's extension of Skinner Road.
South, basically the river right there, so it would be where we're talking about at this point right now. The river basically runs east and west.
Correct.
So the property is on the south side of the river.
That's right. The picture that you have there north is up. So yeah,
right,
it's just south of the bridge. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And it doesn't connect to a road. It's not paved. It doesn't connect to a road. It's kind of a little stub in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we can't figure out what it was ever there.
It's a nice dog park. Councilor Button.
Just to further clarify, this is where if you had gone up just a little bit further there, Skinner comes down and turns, and you've got that barricaded off old road end that runs down into the river there on the north, on the west bank of the river. And there's one old footing sitting out there. I think there ages ago used to be some sort of low pass bridge there.
Decades and decades. We drove it the other day after we were down here talking, and that sounds right, but I think you know the neighborhood a lot better than I do.
And so I know there's been talk over the years, and I can't remember what's in the current park plan and what's in Auburn's current park plan, of having another trail bridge across the White River, potentially at that location. But I don't know.
Pedestrian bridge?
Yeah.
So that kids wouldn't walk on the railroad bridge, Not that they would ever do that now. If you look on a current aerial, where they go now is they get through the wire, they walk across here and go this little pedestrian path. It's not supposed to be there, but it is. Which I'm sure you'd be just as happy to get rid of. Unauthorized pedestrian crossing right next to it.
Yeah, I mean, tragically, we when we did do the site visit, there were signs on the fence of kids who were killed on the tracks. So the railroad does not want people on its tracks. It does not want to invite people close to its tracks.
Other questions from council?
Okay.
So for staff,
Yeah.
what's the process? For us?
Gary, right?
I think, as Matt said, representing Burlington Northern Santa Fe, is this was information information, and Jeannie, we wanted to bring to you as council. First, getting an update on the left bank or east bank project, if you will, as well as all the moving pieces that are going into this very complicated and worthwhile project. So the next steps is, now that you've heard the presentation and you have a sense of the complexity and the timeline involved in the project, the Public Works Committee, we will dig into this information a little bit further on June 3rd. And as Matt alluded to, that the vacation is a very important component of this project. We certainly are aware of some of the desires that the community has discussed and the different ideas that have been looked at over the years. So we're going to talk about what that means and also look at the process of vacation. There's a proscribed process within code and state statute. One of the areas, I think it was on slide 17, one of the second bullets to the bottom, is the city has to do its due diligence, because street right-of-ways that mesh up or abut marine waterways of the state, we have to look at those ideas. Can you hold a port property? Can you provide this type of access? And it's all enumerated in those bullets. So for us to vacate, we will be doing and talking about the due diligence of what that would look like, as well as what valuation, but certainly from a staff perspective, we recognize the value of the project and what it means to the larger community with the protection long-term of preventing flooding like occurred in 2009. So the first step, meet with Public Works Committee, get into a little more detail, talk more about the vacation process, and then from there, come back with a recommendation related to going forward or not with the vacation, or another idea. So does that answer your question?
It does, thank you very much. So are you thinking we would discuss this at the next workshop, or are you looking further out?
I don't want to say the next workshop. It will just depend on how the conversation goes at the committee. Because if it's a consensus to go ahead and start the vacation process, even entertaining that idea will take a period of time to go through. There's certain steps that we'll have to entertain. But if that's one of the affirmative actions, then maybe we would report on that that's the step, and touch bases with council to confirm that.
Thank you very much. Final questions from council?
Well,
Councilor Bill.
we'll be on our discussion on Wednesday.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank
Very
you.
informative presentation.